"How much of the human armada has arrived?" asked Oltix as they began to descend the palace stairs. "We do not know precisely," admitted, I'm not pronouncing that, with some frustration. "But if our scouts report correctly, less than a fifth. By contrast, I have now committed 80% of the forces pledged to the defense, so take it in. Oltix, you are, I fear, witnessing the high point of the fight." Then the shockwave from the fallen cruiser hit the necropolis. The ground shook so hard that masonry fell from the edges of the tombs, and the sound was so loud it was as if the mountains themselves had cried out in pain. As the city's roots shuddered and an answering boom washed in from the northern desert, leagues beyond the curtain wall of the outer city, an entire Imperial frigate, which had clearly plunged into the ground nose first sometimes earlier, had lost engine containment and erupted in a pillar of flame before breaking in two with a deep groan and collapsing sideways. From this high on the stairs, Oltix could see dozens of similar carcasses littered across the plains in all directions, each billowing black smoke into the dawn. Oltix was still staring at the vista by the time whatever his name is had made it all the way down to the steps and halfway to the garden. The Kinas had not so much as looked around him, so intent was he on what was yet to come, but he was anything but distracted. As the spinning rear quarter of an Imperial escort ship hurtled down towards the city, his hand shot out towards it and it was shunted aside from its path. "Arrestor beam projectors," murmured the scarab, in something like awe as it settled on Oltix's cracked shoulder. They were drastically upscaled variants of the same technology that had undone Oltix above the arena, and although their energy costs were unsustainable even for the mighty engines behind the Necron crowned capital, they would be invaluable while they lasted. There were great showers of smaller wreckage coming down and out towards the horizon, but as primitive chemical rockets began to flash on the undersides of the falling specks, Oltix realized they were not pieces of wreckage at all, but landing craft pulling out of steep drops. "They are landing, whatever his name is," said Oltix, trying not to allow any hint of concern into his voice. "Let them come," said the Kinas, darkly as his interstitial presence blossomed with 100 outward broadcasts, "and let them learn the cost of assaulting our throne." Even as he spoke, a flight of 12 transports come arching in from the rising dust in the east, and his hand shot out once more, guiding the invisible force of the arrestor beams. The landers slammed to a halt as if they had hit a wall in the air and hung there while whatever his name's other hand clenched into a fist, drawing a battery of Gauss pylons from the sockets along the necropolis walls. In a fraction of a second, the entire squadron, each ship large enough to carry hundreds, had vanished in green flames. Whatever his name had not even broken his stride. The Kinas might have been no composer of music, but he was a breathtaking conductor, and his two orchestra was war. As Oltix followed him through the garden, it was in flames now from earlier impact. His elders seemed to pilot the entirety of the city, howling his defensive arrays out of the rot and torpor of Unas's decline, and forcing it to gleam with the silver of Ithakas through this his will alone. More landers were approaching the wall now, dozens more in fact, as the Imperials sought to solve the problem by throwing more metal and flesh at it. But more gas pylons shimmered into existence to greet them along the wall, with fortresses of sentry guns between them. Black obelisks rose from the bastion towers and began firing the gravity pulses into the tide of steel, crushing ships together into a crumpled ball. The wave of transport reached the outer city as a tattered line of burning wrecks arching harmlessly from the sky into the impeccable face of the curtain walls.